Hello, this is Lewis. It's August 22nd, 2019. I'm sharing with you a little presentation that I've created on my personal experience with government corruption. Don't think that it just applies to me, it applies across the board. A corrupt government that affects one person affects many others. What they try to do is they try to, pick on people that may not, um, that may have something that the government can use to make them look like a bad person, and then make it seem like it's okay for them to abuse people and to engage in corrupt practices. But in my view, it's never okay. Corruption is corruption, and corruption is more evil than any infraction that I can do or any harm that I can cause to anybody. So let's get started. I'm gonna do an illustration with my own personal case, and don't think that it's limited to this particular case because it's not. I can, in my own situation, I can come up with 50 to 100 examples of various forms of corruption. So let's start. Government corruption 101. The DOB, Department of Buildings, scams homeowners, and they use the Environmental Control Board, which is the New York City's administrative tribunal, to try violations issued by the Department of Buildings. And the law department of New York City, the one that defends New York City when they engage in their corrupt practices, they assist the DOP in their scams against the homeowners. So first we're going to look at a DOB violation complaint. Anytime the DOB complains of a violation, they issue what's called a notice of violation. For short, it's an NOV, and I'll be talking about a particular NOV here, and then I'll go into a bunch of other NOVs as well. Okay, here's the NOV that was issued to me. We're going to call it, you can't see it right here, but it's 19L for short. See the last three characters on the violation number, 19L. So just keep 19L in the back of your mind. The date it was issued was 6/13/2013, and it was for an alleged infraction of building code subsection 1004.1.2. Now remember that 1004.1.2. That's the building code infraction. We'll be talking about it right away. And DOB classifies its violations as Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, which in lay terms, it's immediately hazardous, hazardous, and non-hazardous. So immediately hazardous is the highest or is the most severe form of infraction. So this particular violation alleged a Class 1 violation, which Class 1 happens to be the highest fines and so forth. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that I had too many people in my home, that I somehow exceeded some kind of occupancy limit, and when you read this, it doesn't really make sense. So they say failure to comply with uh, maximum floor allowances per or maximum floor area requirements per occupant load. And then they said that I had up to 6 occupants in one room with bunk beds, which is not true. But just to let you know, they have no evidence of this. It's just not true. It did not happen. And the fact that this first part, I don't know, it didn't make sense to me. It shouldn't make sense to you because they're trying to draw on a part of the law that's not really applicable. And you'll hear right here, you can hear the testimony of when the inspector went to court. My attorney Goldberg asked him a question, and he couldn't really respond to the question. And it was a question about what's the legal capacity of the home on the first floor, and what's the legal capacity of the home on the second floor. Just take a listen. Okay, so I don't know if you heard that. I'm going to play it one more time. Basically, Goldberg is asking Pugak how many occupants are legally allowed to occupy the apartment on the first floor, given the configuration of the apartment. And Pugak says the number of people. We after a pause, and then the attorney Goldberg says, "Yeah, the number of people. Do you have an answer for that?" And then Pugak says, "No." And he says, "Well, what about the second floor? Do you have an answer for that one?" And Pugak says, "No as well." So Pugak doesn't know the legal capacity in terms of occupants in the home, but yet he writes the violation.
How many people is legally occupied based on the configuration? How many people? You have an answer, or would your answer be the same for the second?
Okay, so remember that testimony because it's going to come up. It's going to come up again. So as we progress. So after we had that hearing on that particular NOV, because when you have an NOV, you have a hearing before the Environmental Control Board, and then the Environmental Control Board issues the decision. Now, which that testimony that you heard was given at the ECB hearing, and here's the decision that came from that hearing in which you just heard the testimony. And here's the initial page is showing 19L is one of the violations being addressed. That's the initial page of the administrative law judge's decision. And on the second page, the administrative law judge is talking about what went on at the hearing, and down here she refers to Gold, Goldberg, who's my attorney, and she says Goldberg asks, which you just heard, how many people could legally occupy the first and second floors? So she put both questions in one, and then she says the IO, the issuing officer, Kugak, replied that he visually estimated the square footage, and then based on his visual estimation of the square footage, he determined uh, that there were too many occupants. But you heard the testimony, and so that's like a complete lie. Another judge lie. Like I talk about judges lying all the time, and you see videos where I prove that judges lie. And here's just another example of a judge telling a lie in a decision in order to deny a citizen their rights to a fair trial. Um, and you heard that Pugak didn't know the answer, so she's using this information to make her decision. And here on the next page, she says she finds that the NOVs, all five NOVs, which include 19L, were the the evidence was legally sufficient to support the finding. Well, you heard the inspector testify that he didn't know the legal capacity of the apartment, and so the finding is impossible. So here you just have the ECB, which is a city agency, just like the DOB, working hand in hand with the DOB to screw over a citizen and force them to go to an ECB appeal. The other part of this 19L, she says that 19L was I was guilty of 19L because I was guilty of 18J, but 19L is unrelated to 18J, which is a transient occupancy violation, and 19L is just an occupancy in general overcrowding allegation. Okay, so I appeal that decision because it doesn't, it didn't make sense to me. I appealed everything in the decision, but I did. There was some ray of light entered at the in the ECB appeal decision, and you can see that right now. It was rendered on December 19, 2013, and I just pulled up one excerpt where they dismissed 19L. Okay, she said that the petitioner failed to make out a violation of BC 1004.1.2, and that um, they couldn't make it out. Well, of course, the IO testified he didn't know the legal capacity of the department. So, of course, the ECB was left with no alternative to dismiss it. Anyway, the IO's whole interpretation of 10.04.1.2 is off because 10.02.1.4 simply says that we're going to calculate the number of occupants for which you have to build an egress floor. So this particular code is to determine how big an egress or system that you should build, or how many people that the egress system should accommodate, not what the legal capacity of the department is. So it's like a completely wrong piece of code that he cited. So remember that though, 10.04.1.2. Okay, so now I've had several actions going on at the same time. So this next action was sort of related, like they coincide with each other. But this action was before the New York State Supreme Court, and it was about the vacate order. And in the vacate order, we brought up the violations because the vacate order was dependent on the violations. Okay, so now during this action, the New York City Law Department uh, had addressed some things related to the violations, and in particular 19L, and some of the admissions out of that very interesting and very lightning. So let's take a look at it, at a couple of them here. So this brief written by the New York City Law Department, Amanda Sue Nichols, an attorney for the Corporate Council of New York City, wrote this on November 25th, 2015, or that's when she signed it at least. And we're going to go to one of the pages of this brief, page 32 of the brief. And here she says she's trying to assert that, well, the inspector should have issued a violation of 27 of Administrative Code subsection 27-2075, right? And already, without even a trial, she convicted me in her brief of violating subsection 27-205. And you'll see later that it was impossible for me, looking at the provisions of 27-205, to see that it was impossible for me to even violate this code. But what's interesting here is that she says that, well, this is the code that the inspector should have, or this is the infraction that the inspector should have written for me, or should have issued a violation for. And down at the bottom here, she acknowledges the dismissal of 19L, okay, because 19L was the building code subsection 10.04.1.2. So let's go on to the next page, because here's where the city law department, they admitted that 10.04.1.2 was the wrong provision of the administrative code. Okay, so the New York City Law Department admits that the inspector wrote the wrong violation, wrote a violation for an infraction of building code 10.04.1.2, and it was wrong. So remember that. The city admits that 10.04.1.2 is wrong. And this was on, remember the date? November 25th, 2015. So let's see what we know so far. All right. First, building code subsection 10.04.1.2 is the wrong provisional code to allege overcrowding, and the city knows it. Okay, there's no doubt about it. You can see from the evidence here, the ECB board dismissed it, and the city admits it. So the fact that the city admits it, it's the wrong provision of code, and the city knows it, right? We can't even deny that. Okay. Next, building code 10.04.1.2 is a class of 1 or immediately hazardous violation, and you saw that on the violation itself. You didn't see that on the latest stuff, but you did see that infraction. So we know that it's classified as an immediately hazardous violation. Next, administrative law judges will lie. Okay, there's no doubt about this. Okay, we saw the blatant and bold and unmitigated lie right before us. Okay, the city knew 10.04.1.2 was wrong as early as November 25, 2015, because that's when we admitted. Okay, I assume they knew it way before that. Maybe they knew it when they first started issuing this violation, but we can be certain that they knew on November 25th, 2015 and before. And the city claims the admin code subsection 27-2075 is the correct code to allege overcrowding. Well, we saw that in the brief too, right? So that's what the city claims. All right, so building on this information, let's go forward. Okay, so even though the DOB admits that 10.04.1.2 is the wrong violation for the NOV, they continue to do it. They did it right after they admitted, and they did it up until last month, and who knows when they're going to do it again, maybe this month. Okay, so here we go. Almost 4 years later, still issuing violations of 10.04.1.2. 10.04.1.2. There, that one says, I mean, I can't read it. My eyes are bad, but it looks like it's about 7:30, 7:28, something like that. Anyway, July 2019. July 11th, 2019. They issued the violations. They admitted they shouldn't be issuing this violation in 2015, 2019. They're still writing the violations. But not only that, but now they did something interesting. They're combining they're writing two sections, they're referring to two sections of code, 27-2075 and BC 10.04.1.2. Now, why are they doing this? Like, they can't be the same violation, because if one is not the right violation and one is the right violation to allege overcrowding, then they're not the same, right? You just have to do one or the other. Well, I tried to explain why they did that later on. Who knows that motivation, you know? So here's just some more examples that I pulled up of violations. This is number 13 because the first row is the header, but number 13, here we go again, 10.04.1.2, and at least 79. Here we go. This is sorted by violation date, and on 4/11/2016, since that date they issued 79 10.04.1.2 violations that we know about. After the city admitted that 10.04.1.2 was wrong, they still went and issued 79 of them. And if we pull up the complete list, we see all in all 193 violations since 2008 of 10.04.1.2. Notice that in the beginning they didn't allege 27-2075. They only started including that in the descriptions after they made that admission in that brief, curiously, that they wrote against me. So see, if you fight the city when they engage in corrupt practices, maybe, just maybe, you can affect some change. In this case, it's not really, they're just finding another way to cover their butts rather than curing the defect of their ways. All right, now let's take a deeper look at Administrative Code 27-2075, and here I pull up the provision of code and its chapter. Now, notice what they call it. It's the Housing Maintenance Code. Okay, the building code is in the Building Construction Code, the building code 10.0.4.1.2. That's part of a different section of code. This is the housing maintenance code. One has to do with construction, one has to do with maintenance. Usually maintenance issues are handled by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, and the construction codes are handled by the Department of Buildings, which is building code is one. So here we see the housing maintenance code, sometimes they abbreviate it HMC, contains the provision of code that they were complaining and had convicted that we are violating. So let's take a deeper look at that code. So here we go. Like, first of all, it's inapplicable to own occupied two-family homes. So right here in the first provision, every person occupying an apartment, blah, 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 in a tenant-occupied apartment in a two-family dwelling. Okay, my two-family home is not a multiple dwelling, so this first part doesn't apply. But this part does. But I was owner occupied, so this provision of the code doesn't even apply to me. So they convicted me of this code without hearing a trial, and you see plainly that the code doesn't even apply to tenant occupied, to an owner occupied apartment, just a tenant occupied one. All right, and and when they and the other interesting thing is they don't look at the room or the bedroom. So if you say there were up to 6 people in the bedroom, that doesn't mean anything according to this particular code, unless it was a rooming unit or an SRO or something like that. In an apartment, they're looking at the total livable floor area, which means the entire apartment, and it explains it. It explains what that area is over here. It doesn't include bathrooms and so forth. So and um, they interviewed 7 people in my second floor in my in the second floor apartment. So they would have to have found that 7 times 80 is 560. They would have had to find that my whole apartment was less than 560 square feet, which they didn't do. They didn't even measure it. And none of his estimates could find that out. He estimated 200 square feet per bedroom, and the 2 bedrooms, that's 400 square feet right there. You count the kitchen and the living room and common area, you're well over 600 square feet. Okay, so they convicted me of something that was inapplicable to me, and even if it was applicable to me, they wouldn't be guilty of it based on the information that they would have provided. But that's not the point. The point is, um, they they don't look at rooms. They look at total floor area the total number of occupants in the entire apartment, and they're supposed to be allocated 80 square feet each. All right. Now, what else about 27-2075? Well, first of all, I said that 10.04.1.2 was a class 1 violation. Well, what class violation is 27-2075? Well, first of all, we need to know who's responsible for classifying these, and we see here that section 27-2115 subtitle D of the Housing Maintenance Code is mandated that the department, which the department means the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, should classify all these violations, and they had to do so back in 1972, and they did. There's a court case that proves that they made these classifications, and I'll show you evidence. I'll show you some other evidence that they did. So how do they classify them? They classify them the same way: non-hazardous, hazardous, immediately hazardous. Except they don't classify them as 1, 2, and 3. They kind of classify them using A, B, and C, and they do it in reverse. So whereas 1 is immediately hazardous for the Department of Buildings, and A is non-hazardous for the Housing Preservation and Development. Same thing. B is hazardous and C is immediately hazardous. So just keep that in mind. So about these classifications for these violations. Okay, so here we go. Here we see actual HPD violations written for the violation of 2075, 27-2075. Okay, and then they do talk about the square footage. They talk about the number of occupants, and we don't know all the details about the configuration of the apartments here. There could be multiple dwellings, so they could be rooming units or something different. We don't know. But in any case, we look at the class, the violation class. The violation class, class B, class B, class B. So HPD classifies 27-2705 as only hazardous, whereas the DOB classifies 1004.1.2 as immediately hazardous. So, so you see there's going to be a disconnect if we start equating these two. Um, and and I'm sure you probably already see. Anyway, these violations that I pulled up here, they're not old. They're written in the end of 2018, December, July, May. They don't write these violations that much. I mean, not that many people violate. It's very hard to violate this type of violation, this type of building code. Okay, so here's some more. Uh, and here's one that's a nice illustration of how they use it. They said in the 788 square foot of living area that 9 persons were permitted in that. In this particular case, they had 13 living where 9 persons were permitted. But this is how the violation should look. This is how many square feet of living space you have. This is how many people you have. This is how many people you're allowed to have in this particular area. And notice that the reason how they come up with 9 is 9 into 788 is 9 times 80 is 720 square feet. So we can't get another person in. So 720 square feet would give 80 square feet per person for 9 persons, and they can't get to the next level. So they can't get 10 people. They can get 9 people in there. So this is the way the violation should be written. This is how it's set up. And the DOB, they just don't do it. They just don't do it. It's just corruption, trying to scam homeowners with their partners at the DOB, at the ECB. Okay, so let's take a look at one in detail of one actual violation. This is not mine. This is one that I pulled off the database. Okay, so the NOV numbers listed up here. It doesn't really matter if you want to look it up. It's there for so you can pull up the information yourself if you want it. And this one is dated May 5th, 2019. Okay, and here they do it. They classified as class 1. Class 1, immediately hazardous, and um, they go ahead and allege 1004.1.2 right here, which we know is wrong because they already admitted it, but they're putting it here anyway. And now they deceptively associate the NOV with 27-2075, which is only a class 2. So the reason why they do, it looks like the reason why they equivocate the two is so they can get this class 1 designation over here, so they can screw the homeowner or property owner. Okay, and notice that they don't, when the DOB writes this violation, they make no mention of the livable square footage in the violation. You can't find it here. They just don't put it down, which is a, a material piece of information for making the determination of whether they violated 27-2075. Or they just submitted it. And they get away with it. Yeah, they get away with it. So let's see what else we learned here. We learned that despite knowing that 10.04.1.2 is wrong, the city continues to issue the violations. The city disguises the knowingly wrong use of 1004.1.2 by pairing it with Housing Maintenance Code 27-205-2075, which has nothing to do with 1004.1.2. Once 1004.1.2, as explained to you earlier, is how to determine what size egress to build, and 2075 has to do with the maximum number of occupants in certain types of apartments. So there's not, one is class 1, one is class 2 violation. Nothing to do with you. And 2075 is only a hazardous class violation, but the city prosecutes it as an immediately hazardous class because they associate it with 1004.1.2. Okay, interesting information. Okay, possible reasons the city now pairs 1004.1.2 with 27.205. We can only speculate. I mean, I don't have 100% proof of why they do it, but what are some reasons why they might do it? Well, now they have 2 chances at securing conviction in the administrative court. So if they can't trick the court into finding they're guilty of 1004.1.2, they can trick the court into finding that they're guilty of 27.2075. Okay, that's one 2 chance, double chances. Prosecute a hazardous violation as immediately hazardous violation for increased penalties, including possibility of securing vacant order. Well, there's a big increase in the money that you can get for immediately hazardous violation versus hazardous violation. So maybe the motivation is to get increased penalties. Not only that, you can't secure a vacate order with a hazardous violation. You can only secure it with an immediate hazardous violation. So if they want to harass the homeowner and extort more money from him or torture him some more, they can, they can use an immediately hazardous violation to get a vacate order, but they can't use a hazardous violation. Another possible reason is they want to cover up their past wrongdoings. Okay, they prosecuted 100. Before they got to me, they prosecuted maybe, I don't know, maybe 100 violations of 1004.1.2. Now they admitted at 1004.1.2. So technically, they owe all these people. They admitted they were wrong, and then all these people have a cause of action against the city. They deserve compensatory damages. I'm sorry. And so maybe what they're doing is they're like tweaking how they word the things and associated with 27-2075 so that they can cover up their wrongdoing, so they don't have culpability for what they've now admitted is wrong. So there you go. That is my presentation on, the corrupt practices of your city government. In particular, here it's the Department of Buildings, who if you talk with people in the building industry, they have a reputation for being corrupt. And I don't think that you can deny that what they're doing here is corrupt. And the Environmental Control Board is just so the judge's decision. She lied to rule against me, so it's just a Mickey Mouse arm of the DOB protecting the DOB decisions until you go to their appellate board, where they have to have some kind of semblance of honorability about them, which I will show you that they have none either in another video to come later. But for now, let's assume that they just have a little bit more integrity than the administrative law judges. So sometimes they make a proper ruling, in this case, in my case, they did with that one particular violation. I don't want to even go into the other ones. Okay, so hopefully you enjoy. So hopefully you learn something. And you know what I'd like to see done is um, I'd like to see somebody bring a class action against the city, and and so the city uh, awards the poor homeowners uh, their just compensation. Thank you for joining me. I'm gonna end it right here. Have a great day if you're in the States. Have a great night if you're somewhere on the other side of the world. And here we go.